Welcome to This Love Works, the podcast that is raising the bar for exceptional relationships. Join psychotherapist Marianne Marlowe as she talks with couples who've mastered the art of healthy, passionate relationships. They explore what makes their real love work and dig into topics featuring cutting-edge research and relationship science. Let's listen in.
This is Marianne Marlowe of This Love Works, and I want to address something that's really been on my mind and something that I see fairly frequently in couples that are super high performance. One of the things that makes them high performance and quite successful is that they pay a lot of attention to their agendas. They pay a lot of attention to being exceptional in their workplaces, which creates sometimes a really wonderful and full life. And the really tricky thing is that we've got to pay attention to where our partner or spouse is while we're running our own agendas. A lot of times this happens at work in either very high energy or high stress environments, or it happens very frequently in environments where there is a need for your partner to be entirely focused on his or her work. So this happens frequently with my couples that either one or both of them is in the medical field. I have a lot of first responders in my practice, a lot of police officers, EMTs, and medical people. And, let's face it, we want those people to be entirely focused on their jobs, especially when you call 911. You want that person to be entirely focused on you if you have an emergency, right? So what happens to the spouse in those kinds of situations, right? When our partner is entirely focused on their job, or when we are entirely focused on the job, how do we ensure that we are taking care of the relationship? So that's kind of the big, broad question that I want us to be looking at and talking about today. And so one of the things that I think about in the environment where we can't really have connection to our spouse is whether or not that is okay with the person that is left behind, if you will. So many times people who are in the first responder field will couple up with somebody who is also a first responder or in the medical field, or somebody who kind of gets it, right? They are familiar with the kind of stress that you're under. They are very familiar with the schedules, right? Firefighters and EMTs have these very unique schedules. And so do people in the medical field. They have very unique schedules. And then you're on call at certain times, so that you've got to be able to pay attention to the weekends that you're unavailable, or, maybe your family has a trip planned, but you can't go because you are on call. So we've got to pay attention to the actual times that our person or we are literally unavailable because of the work that we do. So is that okay? Is that okay for you or your spouse? What kind of tolerance level do you have for what we call individuation, right? Being an individual, having your own things going, knowing that you have some security in the relationship. So that when you text your person, if they don't get back to you within a 5-minute period of time, that doesn't destabilize you. If it does, right, or if there's a circumstance where you need access to your partner or your partner needs access to you, what are some of the agreements that you can make ahead of time in order for that to work? Because let's face it, here's how we find out whether or not that's okay. We get into a relationship and and we have high stress, high performance jobs, and our person's trying to get in touch with us, and I'm in an all-day meeting. I don't even look at my phone, or I'm on my computer and I haven't even paid attention. And then I notice that my person has blown up my phone. They've contacted me 5 times. I have a ton of messages, because once the insecurity begins, right, that then tends to build if our person isn't aware that we aren't looking at our phones, or that we haven't taken a break to look at our phones, or our emails, or any of the other number of ways that our people are trying to get in touch with us. So one of the first things that I like to talk to people about is, what was your experience when you ran into this for the very first time? What happened for you? What were some of the questions or some of the stories that you created in your mind, right? Did you already have your partner, if you couldn't get in touch with them, did you already have them in a relationship with somebody else? If your person couldn't get in touch with you, what did you learn about, the insecurity that you created with your person? So the very first thing that you want to pay attention to are, what are some of the stories that you create about your partner when you can't get in touch with your partner, or when you've noticed that your partner has been trying to get in touch with you? Right? We make up stories. We can create all sorts of narratives around our person being insecure and they're too needy, right? That's not pro-relational kinds of conversations that we have. So the very first thing that we have to pay attention to is, what is our tolerance level? And let's really focus on creating positive narratives about our partner. The second thing that I want to address is that oftentimes work ends up being what Stan Tatkin would call a third, right? We have one person in relationship and another person in relationship. That's 2. And that relationship, little bubble, that bond that we create, is a whole separate thing that we have to pay attention to. It has its own nervous system. It has its own rules. It has its own level of safety and security that we need to pay attention to. Anything outside of the couple bubble, outside of that little bond that we have together, is considered a third. There's 1, there's 2, and then there are thirds. So remember that any of the 5 things I've talked about, 5 things that couples fight about, any of those 5 things are considered thirds, right? So we've got work, we've got mess, we've got family, we've got hobbies, right? All the other, and money and sex. Those are the things that create conflict for couples. Those are the top 5 things that couples fight about. So when those kinds of things creep in this case, work, that's a third. Meaning we've got to create safety and security in the couple bubble. With 1 and 2, we've got to create safety and security so that anything else outside of us is managed by us as a couple. So if my person is having difficulty with the number of hours that I'm working, or the way in which I'm working, right? I don't have boundaries around my work. So I might work during dinner, or I might keep my phone at the table and continue to work during dinner. Now, listen, if I'm on call, that might be okay. We've established that, right? But again, it's the agreement between those 2 people about creating safety and security. So anything outside the relationship, including in this case, our work, is a third. And we have to make some decisions before we get into a problem, before we've created insecurity. During those times when we are feeling good with each other, when we have some real connection, that's when we need to talk about what are the ground rules for creating safety and security in our relationship. Right? Do I send you, if it really is an emotional emergency, do I send you an emoji that will give you in a split second an understanding of where I'm at. And if I can't reach you, right, do I know that you are going into surgery? Do I know you're going to be unavailable to me? And so maybe one of the ground rules that we create is, listen, before you go into surgery, where I know you're going to be gone for a long period of time, just reach out and let me know, right? Send me a text. Let me know that you are going to be unavailable to me. And that then creates some safety and security in the relationship. The more safety and security in the relationship that we develop and create, the more tolerance the relationship is going to have, because we become reliable. When I reach out, because I know that it's difficult for my person when he can't get in touch with me for hours, I know that that can put a strain on him. And so when I know that I'm going to be unavailable, I always reach out. Hey, I just want to let you know I'm thinking about you. I'm heading into a process. I'm not going to be available for the next several hours. Right. So the more upfront security that we can create, the more long-term security that we're going to have. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about something that is sort of increasingly becoming more and more noticeable, which is, and this happened especially during COVID when we were all home with each other, is that work for some people became the addiction of choice. We can spend as much time as we wish and allow our work to become the focus of our attention above all things. Now, here's the thing. For those of us who really enjoy our work is a pleasure. And so even though we definitely have to put in certain hours, and sometimes they're long hours, it's enjoyable. When we know that we're helping people, when we know that we are contributing in a positive way, that can be quite alluring. But it can also tip over into something that is getting too much of our attention. And we know that when the other parts of our life are suffering, that we have a problem. And so oftentimes we have to really pay attention to whether or not we are not just having balance in our life, right? We hear a lot about work-life balance, but how am I putting my attention, and am I spending more time and attention in work, or the quality of my time with work is greater, more satisfying than in my personal life? That's when I know that I've got to take a look and shift back to my primary relationship. Because the most important thing is that I create safety and security in my personal and primary relationship. And once I've developed safety and security, then I know that our love relationship is working. And that's my bite for today. This Love Works, Marianne Marlowe. See you next time.